We'll call to order the meeting of the Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board of Thursday, September 5th, 2024. Present at the front table to my far left is Jessica Vitale, a voting member.
Okay.
Next to Jessica is Ed McGargy, a voting member.
Hello.
To my left, Ernie Angelos, our solicitor.
Good evening.
Bill Rose, to my right, a voting member. Good evening. Jesse Poynton, a voting member.
Good evening.
And Jonathan Mount, our zoning officer for Haverford Township. We have two new cases on the agenda tonight, three, actually. One of the cases has been continued, so we may as well, we have to do the pledge. Bill, you want to try?
Please rise if you can, repeat after me. Pledge allegiance
To the flag, United States of America, and to the republic, stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. With respect to case Z24-29, CMC Havertown LP, owner of 2225 Darby Road, Havertown, PA, DC folio number 2203-0073200. And I'm not going to read this entire description into the record unless somebody specifically requests that I do so. We received a continuance request about a week ago, and this case has been continued to our October 17th hearing.
Just to augment that, Chairman, we did receive a request for a continuance from the attorney representing the applicant in that matter. In addition, the attorney and the applicant have signed a waiver of the applicable time periods under the MPC. We're well within our ability to continue this case without any impact on the 60-day clock that's a requirement for us to convene a first hearing, correct?
Okay, thank you. So our first case tonight is Z23-16, Charles Birch, equitable owner of 622 College Avenue, Haverford, PA, DC folio number 2204-00123001, who seeks a special exception under section 182-720C2D to construct an access drive within areas of very steep slopes, and under 182-720C5A and C to construct stormwater management facility and access driveway for a single-family detached dwelling within areas of steep slopes, and any other relief required, including variances from provision 182-720 to construct the proposed improvements. Property is owned SRD, Special Residential District, and located in the 5th Ward. This was a case that we previously heard, and decisions were rendered with certain time constraints within which the project was supposed to be completed. We received a request for a 6-month extension of those time conditions, and we did not require the applicant to appear here this evening because we wanted to be able to proceed with the rest of the cases that were on the agenda. So I'll just ask the board. Yeah.
So just as an addition, this is the first request for this extension. It is a 6-month extension. For administrative purposes, the board typically renders a decision to allow an extension on its first request, which is why this is listed. However, no need for the applicant to appear.
So I'll just ask if there's anyone present that came to testify or chime in about this case. Okay, so I'll ask Jessica, how do you vote?
I would vote to approve the extension.
Ed?
I concur.
Bill?
I agree.
Jesse? So do I. That continuance is granted 5-0. Which leads us to the first case we're going to actually hear tonight. Z24-27, Matthew and Melissa Shaw, owner of 657 Washington Avenue, Havertown, PA, DC folio number 2201-0229000, who seeks a variance from the provisions of section 182-207C5A to permit a covered porch to be located 18.67 feet from the right-of-way when 30 feet is required. The property is owned R5, low to medium density residential, and located in the 7th Ward. Matthew and Melissa, are you guys here?
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, come forward to the podium.
Hi, good evening, how are you?
And so the way this works is I'll swear both of you in,
Okay.
and I'll ask if you have any exhibits that you want to submit to the board. If you're not really familiar with how exhibits are marked and
Not at all.
submitted, then I would suggest that we take a break, and I'll ask Ernie to come walk you through the process really quick, because I think it'll be helpful.
Probably, I see, we probably should have had a lawyer. I see there's a lot of terms up here that we're not quite sure that we understand, so.
We'll see how it proceeds, and
Okay.
if you ever
Well,
want to
we
stop,
put this in, and
if you ever
Yeah.
want to stop,
completely different from what's up there. According to,
if you ever want to stop and you want to get an attorney and come back, we'll continue your
No,
case.
no, no,
for you,
this
but
is okay.
let's see how we make out.
Okay.
So unfortunately, Jeff, we're going to go off the record. All right, we'll resume the meeting of the Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board. All right, now, I need to swear you both in. Ladies first, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
We do. Raise your right hand.
No, he's next.
Oh, I'm
One
sorry,
time.
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please.
Melissa Shaw, 657 Washington Avenue, Havertown.
And now you please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please.
Matthew Shaw, 657 Washington Avenue, Havertown, PA.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you would like to do and why?
And please do speak on the microphone because people on TV can't.
Oh,
Okay.
we have to push it?
I think it's already
Oh,
on.
no, it's on.
Hi, thank you for having us tonight. We were seeking to put a roof over an existing cement pad on the front of our property. We happen to back Nailers Run Creek, so one of the major reasons why is that the backyard floods, so we can't put it back there. And also, well, I know. We'd love to have a front porch so that family can come visit from time to time when my husband's not feeling well, because he has a couple chronic brain issues. So it just would be easier for us to have on the front porch. It's covered. We already have an existing cement pad there, and we're just seeking to cover that pad.
Okay. And Ernie went through the exhibit process with you, and I'm sure you have some exhibits that you want to hand up to the board.
We do. I have Exhibit A1, and this is our deed. Do I just approach and give these to you?
Yeah.
This is A2 is the property lines with the dimensions of the roof cover for the existing pad and the impervious, which doesn't have anything to do with the right-of-way here, I know. And then this is the proposed plan for the roof cover of that pad.
So, just to be clear for the record, Exhibit A1 is a copy of the deed evidencing that Mr. and Ms. Shaw represent or own the subject property and have standing this evening to be the applicants before this board. A2, as indicated by the applicant, is a sketch plan, which I believe was prepared by a surveyor.
Yes, it
Remember,
was.
was a surveyor.
Jim Cannon, who's a local handyman, had someone come out and do it for us. I'm not sure of his name.
So it shows the existing conditions of the property in addition to the proposed porch over the existing concrete pad. And then, as indicated, Exhibit A3 is actually a photo of the contractor's, I guess, a side view of what the porch cover and post would look like.
Okay. And Melissa, are you going to make the pad any larger or just build over the existing pad?
Just build over the existing.
And the board will have questions for you. That's how the process
No problem.
works. So let's go to Jessica.
When your backyard floods, does it typically come pretty close to your house?
Not really, because we do have like a little bit of a top pad, but it does come up to where it has taken like furniture away back there.
Okay.
It washes, if you know anything about like Washington Avenue or the residents there, it takes, there's a lot that comes up,
Okay.
yeah.
And then for the porch cover, what kind of roofing are you going to put on it?
I believe he has a tin roof, like a
Okay.
metal roof.
A roof.
Yes.
And what will the columns look like? Are they going to be,
I think they're just wood.
They're wood,
Cedar
okay.
columns, yes.
okay, all right, I don't have any other questions.
Ed?
Yes, on the, if this were to be approved, would you accept the condition that the porch would never be enclosed?
Absolutely, yes.
And would you accept the condition that the only utilities on the porch would be electric?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Do you know in your neighborhood whether this porch would be unusual? Other people in your neighborhood have porches that encroach into the front yard setback by similar amounts?
In our neighborhood or our street
On your street.
specifically? I think a few people just have them out a little bit, not as far as ours, for sure. Yeah, ours would, well, that's not what he's asking though, so.
Okay.
Ours, I think ours would be the furthest out. There are some people with some porch covers, but not as, this comes out over our existing.
Is there a reason why yours has to be out further than the neighbors?
We were just going over an existing cement pad. There was no reason that it was going to be bigger. It was just, we just thought, like, why pull it in? Why not just cover the cement? No reason. Just thought it made sense symmetrically.
Yes, but one of the requirements of zoning is that you give the minimum relief as necessary. Now,
Okay.
because of putting a roof on it makes it into a structure. And if you're making it into a structure, then it has to follow the regulation. A patio isn't regulated, so you don't have to have that same condition. If you put
Okay.
an awning on your porch, it wouldn't be regulated. But since you're putting a hard structure on, it's regulated.
Okay.
Okay, final question I have is the issue of runoff. Will this change the runoff and affect the neighbors in any way?
I don't think so.
How will the water be handled from this additional porch? Will it be directed in a different way than runoff from the concrete pad?
I imagine we have all of our gutters draining into an existing, like, whole
Underground pipe.
underground pipe anyway that drains into our own thing, so I can't imagine
to the
that it would
street
affect
or
the,
whatever. Yeah.
I can't imagine that it would affect the neighbors.
So you would plan to attach your roof drains from your porch into this underground piping system?
Yes.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Billy?
Can I just follow up on that? So where does this underground system go? Is it just a underground retention basin, or is it flow into Naylor's Run, or?
We have them like underneath the cement already, if that makes sense, like Kane paving when
I
they
think it
did
goes
our,
out to the street.
one of them goes out to the street and one of
No.
them goes to the backyard, doesn't it?
The existing, I'm sorry. All the draining from the house itself, the roof of the house itself, is it all goes down into the piping that goes out to the street. So the plan was for this covering to also join into that. And which,
So no rainwater from your roof currently or as proposed would be surface runoff? It would
Correct.
go into a pipe, but then it flows onto the surface of Naylor's Run Road or whatever road, Washington?
Washington.
Oh, Washington, honestly, I have to kind of think about that. I'm not really sure. I
I'm
could
not
take
sure
a
if it
picture
actually
of
goes
it and
into
bring
the
it
sewer.
back.
I'm not sure where it goes. I know it
think it
goes
goes
down
But
that
it
way.
discharges into the street. That's
Somewhere,
all I
yeah,
wanted to know.
yeah.
Okay.
Can we pull up Exhibit A2 on the screen? It just might be easier for you to point to things.
Okay.
The sketch plan is, got a lot of writing on it, so it's hard to see it. I don't know if, we don't have control of that.
No, we don't.
Okay, so, you have a copy of A2 with you, right?
I do.
Okay. Just so you can refer to it. So I'm looking at A2 and I see the bold rectangle in front of your house, which I believe is the existing concrete pad. Is that correct?
No, the
In
bold,
green,
But we don't, the only thing, this is all we got.
that, yeah, in bold.
Yeah, the bold, yeah, this rectangle, the bold rectangle, that's your existing concrete pad.
yes.
And then if you were looking at this to the right of it, there's some things that are not easy to read, to be
Yeah,
honest. And
that's-
I'm just wondering if you could walk us through. So starting at the back of your house,
Right.
there's, it looks like a little rectangle and it says pea gravel, I guess?
Pea gravel,
That's
because there
for-
was some issue of permeable, they thought that was concrete too. And no, that's pea gravel so that the water, rainwater could go
Okay.
into
I
the
think he's
ground.
just asking you what it is.
On that side of the house, there's a neighbor there.
Correct.
Okay. And so you have pea gravel there, and then you have a section that looks like it's grass. Is that right? Below, just coming down the page a little bit?
It's actually
Correct.
all pea gravel. We have trash cans and little things back there. That's where our trash cans are. It's all kind of pea gravel, all to the right here.
All the way up
There's-
to the.
And there's grass.
Right, so
Yes.
this little section is grass or no?
It's pea gravel
Pea
back there
gravel
too.
also. And then,
runs the length of the house.
so, and all the way down to the
That's all
street?
grass.
No, down to the street is grass. After you come to when you come to our cement pad, what's already
Okay,
there,
got it.
that's grass.
Right, but only one person could talk at
I
once.
could probably draw a line there. Okay. So, and all of that pea graveled area is, you're counting as pervious. That,
Correct.
Yes.
just trying to make sure I
Yes, sir.
understand your
Yes. Mm-hmm.
calculations. And then the square that's in the very back of the property that's listed as 3,120 square feet, that's just grass?
Yes.
Okay. And the stream is behind there?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. And so you have a garage, and then between the garage and the house, there's a bunch of hash marks, but it doesn't, is that paved? Is that concrete?
That is, yes, it's concrete back there. Mhm.
Okay. And so you have the driveway and the garage and the house and the existing concrete pad, and then the pavement behind the house and to the side of the garage. And everything else is grass. Is
Yes.
that- Okay. And you bought this house in what year, 2018, I think?
Yes,
Is that right?
2018.
Let's see. So you don't have, a question had come up about whether this roof would extend further into your front yard setback than your neighbors, and you said yes, it would, because it's your existing concrete pad does too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody on the street, I'd have to take honestly, I don't think anybody else on the street has a front porch.
Sure. And so I'm trying to figure out, what are the dimensions of this pad? Based on the sketch plan, is it 24 feet, 6 inches wide? And then how deep does it go from the front of your house?
I think 8 feet. It comes out about 8 feet from the front door.
And your testimony is that,
Is that right? 8 feet?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
okay, so there's approximately 200 square feet, 25
Something
by
like
8,
that, maybe.
right?
Yeah.
So, and all 200 square feet you feel you need, or is it that you just wanted to cover the whole pad? I mean, you could cover less than the full amount of the pad.
I would love to cover the whole pad though, yeah, for sure.
And the idea is that you want to be able to entertain family and friends outside at your house.
Yes.
And why not inside?
Is this being televised?
It is. So you can sort of give some, general, well. Yeah, so we understand the health issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the preference of having 200 square feet of outdoor covered
Right.
social space
Right.
is directly tied to that issue.
Yes, it really is, yeah. I mean, we
Good.
even want to
And
talk
once you
about.
answer it, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
sorry.
All right. Okay, I don't think I have any other questions, but I would ask Jonathan, the pervious and impervious coverages, you think all that calculation was done? I know it's just done by hand here, but
It does appear to be on the application, and I don't see anything with it that would cause me any concern at this point.
okay. All right. All right, that's all I have. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you so much, thank
Jesse?
you. Oh, sorry.
Have you spoken to your neighbors about your plans?
Yes,
Are they in favor?
everyone seems to be in favor.
Nobody's given you any hesitation or concern?
No?
All right. All my other questions have been asked. Thank you.
Okay.
That's that mine. Is there anything else you guys would like to add?
No?
Okay, you can have a seat.
Okay, thank you.
With that, I'll ask if there's anyone present that received certified mail that wishes to testify. Anyone that? You have one. So, Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
Thomas, B-L-E, B as in boy, I-E, L-L-I, 688 Washington Avenue, Havertown, Pennsylvania. No testimony, but I did want to voice support for the zoning variance that Matthew and Melissa Shaw are seeking today. I live on the block. I think it would be a great addition.
And how many houses down do you live in?
4 across the street.
Okay, and are there other houses with porches? I mean, I'm pretty familiar
I'm not
with the
sure.
area. I thought there were more other houses.
I think there are other with porches. I'm not sure if they're covered or not, but I think it would be a great addition
Okay,
to the neighborhood.
thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else that received certified mail, regular mail? Any other residents of Haverford Township? With that, we'll close the record on this case, and the decision will be rendered either this evening. In the event we're unable to render a decision this evening, one would be rendered at our next regularly scheduled meeting on, can't believe you guys aren't ready for this. You know, I never,
19th?
September 19th, but we're going to try to do it tonight for you, the decision. Thank you. See that? You made it through it
You
fine.
don't need to wait.
Yeah, you don't,
You can,
you don't need to wait. If you want, you could certainly, you'll get, if there's a decision tonight, you'll get a letter from me. I'll send it out tomorrow. But you can call the township and they'll let you know if a decision was rendered. That way you don't have to stay for the next meeting.
But you're welcome if you want to hang out.
This makes me nervous.
Oh, no. You did fine. You did fine. Wow, that's a first. I have to tell you, that's a first. All right. So, we'll probably do it tonight. So, all right.
Do you still have the Exhibit A1?
Here, Ernie, you can have mine.
No, that one, I'll keep that one, because I have it set up. That one's clear, pictures, yeah.
No, I only have A2.
That's what I meant, A2, I apologize. A1 was the deed. I have that. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
All right. Our next case is Z24-28, Blackwater Falls Trust, Robert E. Brotzman III, trustee, owner of 2400 Darby Road, Havertown, PA, DC folio number 2203 0069000, who seeks a variance from the provisions of section 182404B to permit the development and operation of a service station with 4 pumping stations and a 2,200 square foot convenience store. Property is zoned C3 General Commercial and located in the 3rd Ward. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. May I request 2 minutes to get set up? We have a board and other materials.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Off the record, Jeff, please.
Yes, I am ready to go. Yes, I am ready to go, and you did a very credible job with my name, and you can certainly refer to me as Lewis. Good evening, members of the Zoning Hearing Board. My name is Louis Kodemal, attorney ID number 76935. I am here on behalf of the applicant before you this evening, Blackwater Falls Trust. Blackwater Falls Trust is the owner of the real property at 2400 Darby Road in Haverford Township. It has submitted an application for use variances from subsections 182-404B and subsections thereto and any other relevant sections to allow for development and operation of a gas station with 4 pumping stations and a convenience store of 2,200 square feet and variances from any other applicable ordinances to enable the proposed uses. I have handed up to the Zoning Hearing Board a copy of the definition of vehicle refueling facility contained in the ordinance.
And Louis, do you want to enter your appearance?
I would.
Let's do
Thank
that.
you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Solicitor. My name is Robert Donahue. My Supreme Court ID is 83485. I'm here representing Edward Rimmer, who is the owner of 1 through 9 East Eagle Road and also owns 50% of 34 East Eagle Road. Mr. Rimmer will be objecting to the petition tonight.
And at this time, you're asking for party status on
Yes, I
behalf of
am.
your client. And if you would, for the record, just indicate how close a proximity exactly your client's properties are relevant to the subject.
Absolutely. If you look at the picture that's on the screen, you can see the Katz Pharmacy. My client's property is directly across the street from the pharmacy. That's 1 through 9 East Eagle. And then 34 East Eagle is a large apartment building down the street towards the Wawa. It's a block away.
So as it relates to being able to actually visually see this property, 1 through 9 is directly across the street. Diagonally from this property.
Yes, it is.
Mr. Kodemal, would you like to raise any objection and or anything for the record?
Yes, Mr. Angelos. For purposes of the record, I would cite to the case of William Penn Parking Garage, 346 A 2nd, 269, Pennsylvania Supreme Court, 1975. As council has discussed during the recess, there are various levels of standing. It is up to the zoning hearing board to determine whether or not to allow counsel to and his client to appear as protestants before this board. And then there's also the level of whether or not a party has standing for purposes of any subsequent court action. And in the interest of preserving the record and streamlining the presentations tonight, I would simply like to lodge a continuing objection for purposes under William Penn Parking Garage as to parties that fail to demonstrate that they are proximately located as to adverse impact, or they lack injury, or they're not aggrieved, and any harm might be speculative or not immediate. I will take counsel at his representation to this board that his clients are diagonally, directly located across from the street without asking them to produce any kind of deed or things of that nature.
So with purposes of that objection, I would agree with Mr. Kodemal's recitation of the law that there are two distinct levels of standing, one before this board, which under the MPC is less stringent than before the Court of Common Pleas. Court of Common Pleas requires the traditional notions of standing, which are an actual aggrieved party, where that specific interest cannot be speculative, nor can it be commonplace in that the public simply wants to see the applicant comply with what the zoning requirements are. There needs to be an actual immediate harm to the particular individual seeking appeal of any application. However, before this board, that standing requirement is less stringent, and typically this board will allow standing for anybody who is in close proximity of the property. I would recommend that counsel's client be granted standing. Excuse me, sir?
Very close proximity to
Okay, so
I'm not sure with decorum here how it works.
So let's do this. You have a standing objection.
Yes.
I'll let that stand for anybody who seeks party status. At this point, is there anybody else that is in close proximity who received notice of this evening's hearing that would like to request party status? Can you come up and please come up, state your name for the record, and identify what property you own and how close you are to the subject property.
Good evening. Mike Kingston, 2433 Darby Road, it's just out of sight, upper left center of this drawing, this representation here. Many people right across the street. I'm not in favor of
So it isn't,
environmentally.
sir, hold on. So right now, we're just trying to determine whether or not you have standing to be a party to this case.
Yes.
You'll have an opportunity after the applicant has done its
Okay.
case
I
to make
understand.
any presentation. So right now,
All
how
right.
far away, well, let's do this. Why don't we have, why don't you swear him in real quick?
Please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yeah.
And your full name and address for the record?
Michael A. Kingston, 2433 Darby Road, West Darby, they call it.
So distance, can you give an approximation on how far away your property is?
I would walk across, when I go out to the sidewalk, I guess I would walk 100 feet diagonal, and I'm there.
And you received notice?
Yeah, by mail.
I would, close enough, I would recommend party status be granted.
Well, we haven't ruled on Robert's client, Ed River, yet, so we're going to give him standing,
Okay.
and we'll give Michael standing as well.
What do
So
you need?
at this point, after the applicant's done
Mhm.
and was Mr. Kingston's attorney does his presentation, we'll ask for public comment and further comment by party status members.
Okay.
Mr. Kingston.
I am
So, I'm
Mr.
sorry. Yes, correct.
Just to make sure I understand, is your property adjacent to the Oakmont parking lot?
The dentist is there, I'm right next to him.
So you're on the same side of Darby Road as
The
the
dentist.
applicant here?
No, opposite, right across the street,
Got it. Got it.
diagonally across.
And just to be clear, you don't need to have party status to give public comment to the board. and
I didn't know
nobody
it worked.
does.
I've been to
So
a couple,
you
but
know.
I forget.
it confers some other legal rights with respect to appeal and cross-examining witnesses, but you don't need to have party status to come tell the board what your concerns are, whether you're in favor or opposed to this. So,
There'll be a public comment session at the end of the meeting for anybody who's not.
Also, there was a gas station before, but it was cleaned.
So let's
Let it
wait to
go?
go through the process first before
Okay.
we make any.
I'll be
any
back
testimony.
up.
Okay, fair enough. Anybody else? Please come up, state your name. I'll swear you in.
I do have a question. What is party status?
So, and that's kind of what I was trying to get to at the beginning. It allows individuals to cross-examine any applicant or any witness that's present. It also allows them to present their own case in opposition or in favor. You don't, to the chairman's point, you don't necessarily need party status to address the board. There is a public comment session at the end of this meeting where anybody from the public can come up and make comment either for or against. Party status just grants you additional rights at this hearing, but as indicated, and as I indicated earlier, it doesn't necessarily mean you have a right to appeal that decision to the Court of Common Pleas. You need to be actually aggrieved by that, meaning a substantial interest and an immediate harm to your property, your interest, in order to appeal the Court of Common Pleas. So you can request it here, would just give you the right to cross-examine any witnesses and make your own presentation. You have a right to public comment at the end.
Okay, my property is adjacent. It's across the alley. It only,
Yes. Can we swear you in first, please?
do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
yes, sir.
And your full name and address for the record, please?
Julia Brooks, 15 West Hillcrest Avenue, Haverford Township, Pennsylvania.
Can we see your property on this image?
Yes, sir.
Okay, which one is it?
The cafe, Nudi's Cafe, is right next door to the property in question. I live behind Nudi's Cafe. My property intersects the corner property that's hoping to get the zoning variance by, I don't know, a foot, maybe a foot and a half.
Okay, so you abut it. You're an
Yes, sir.
adjacent property.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Is your house the one with the white fence in the front yard
Backyard.
or backyard?
Yes, sir.
Is that a pool right there? Is that
Yes,
what that is?
sir.
Okay. Got
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
We'll grant Julia party status.
Thank you.
I just want to know, like, what happens? What is the conclusion? Something that
Well, that's what this board's here to find out. The applicant's going to make a presentation. They have certain requirements they have to meet. This board's going to determine whether or not they meet them and render a decision as to whether or not variances that are requested should be granted. It will likely not render that decision this evening. It will likely not render that decision this evening. Is there anybody else who would like to request party status?
Hi, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record?
My name is Regina Colantonio. I'm happy to spell it if you'd like. It's
Oh, yeah.
Colantonio. And my address is 31 East Clearfield Road, Havertown, Pennsylvania. And I'd like to request party status for a collective of neighbors and residents in the area who are. My Pennsylvania Supreme Court ID is 205717. And while it's a collective of neighbors who I'm happy to document, we did not understand that we needed party status because I am not a practicing zoning attorney. I am a commercial real estate attorney.
Are you representing those collective?
I am.
All of them, well, where are they relative to the subject property?
They are, for the most part, along East Clearfield Road. There's a collective of neighbors in the back row. And we haven't documented anyone else beyond, oh, I'm sorry, on Darby as well. So, yes,
We would need a list.
I can do that with signatures, yeah. And I apologize that we didn't have that.
That's all right.
None of us have ever attended a zoning meeting.
But in order to do that for this evening, we would need a list of where everybody is located, who those are.
Okay.
And how far away, in proximity they are for the subject property.
Okay.
Do all of them have sufficient, are they close enough? Are they in proximity? I'm not exactly sure where the street is or how far.
We are 2 blocks, 3 blocks.
2 blocks?
I mean, I'm newish to
there-
Havertown. I mean.
Did you get notice for this evening's
We
hearing?
did not. No, we did not receive official notice, so. But, I mean, just as a resident of Havertown, as I'm sure all of you are, I think, though we did not receive notice, we believe that this use presents an imminent danger to the health and well-being of all the residents in the area, particularly our children.
And as it relates to appeals to the Court of Common Pleas.
Yeah.
It is very specific that generalized interest or generalized harm is insufficient to establish standing for an appeal to the Court of Common Pleas.
And I think we'd probably still like to preserve that right where it come to it, though we're hopeful that this board won't decide in that manner.
At this point, given the distance, Mr. Cornwell, you have an objection?
I will have an
Oh, yeah,
objection
and I'm happy to.
if there are particular people here that can represent to this board that they have retained and have a specific street address, I think the record should reflect that.
And I would agree. If you
My
have-
pleasure.
Yep.
My pleasure. So there are 4 neighbors here who would, I think, be willing to say, oh, yeah. Oh, 5 neighbors who would like to identify themselves as part of, yes.
I'm sorry, sir, were you with?
Yes.
Okay, so you guys already have party status?
They already have party status, but they also.
Yeah.
So I will let those individuals state their names and addresses.
If
I'm happy to
if
stay
you're
in front.
representing them, I would have you question them.
Oh, I'm happy to. Joshua Trolley, man in the blue button down and the glasses, gorgeous head of hair. Would you mind stating your address for the record?
I need to swear, Mr.
Oh, I apologize.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
And your full name and address for the record?
Joshua Trolley, 19 East Clearfield Road. Trolley, like a trolley car? Nice and easy.
EY, right?
Yeah, EY. 19 East Clearfield Road.
I know, it's Orchard,
So yeah,
Orchard, Clearfield.
Hurst Orchard.
Next up?
Well,
Jason
hold on.
Sorbari?
I think
We can decide these one at a time.
Wait, Joshua, come on back up.
And so I mean, to be clear, we are seeking party status as a collective, not on our individual basis. Is that not an option with respect to that?
I would say.
Even if we had a long list of neighbors with names and addresses who are all seeking to be represented by one
Without-
council?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I
No worries.
apologize.
Yeah.
Without actual information on the record as to where those particular residents live.
Yes.
I don't think this board can make a determination as to whether or not they're entitled to
To
party
ne-
status.
understood, yes.
And I believe Mr. Cotomal, to try and streamline this,
Got it.
has put in a general objection to anybody who's requesting it, who doesn't satisfy the requirements.
I
So-
get it. And so to clarify, we are not, I mean, I understand that that's how, but our intention would be to request party status as a collective and a group. So
Can I just ask, what type of collective is this? I mean, we don't even.
collective just
don't
means a
give-
group of people.
Community associations struggle to get party status.
Yeah.
So,
We can go single if that makes that happier.
Yeah, I think it'd be easier to go. on a
I don't
single
think that we would get it with single because we live, I mean, based on what I'm hearing from,
basis. And you probably wouldn't get it as a collective. either.
but so, okay.
So we're just not, should we even bother coming up? Is that what you're telling
No,
us?
no, no, so-
Because you're just shooting everything down.
We hear you, we hear you.
Individually have.
Oh, that's what I'm just asking. I was
Yeah.
not sure.
And we didn't know that about community
Yeah.
associations not
What-
getting.
Can't keep up.
Only one person can speak at a
Oh,
time.
sorry.
We're excited.
So that Arlene can keep an accurate
My
record.
apologies.
What was
Sorry.
represented by your attorney? Is she representing you in this? She's indicated that she is.
Yeah.
Okay. What she had represented was that she didn't believe that you would individually get party status, given the proximity
Well,
of
you
where
told
you
us we
live.
couldn't
to.
do
Yeah, to be clear, I am not a zoning attorney. I am representing them in my capacity as a real estate attorney and a very concerned neighbor who has significant real estate experience, though not a zoning attorney. So I do not know. We are seeking party status. If party status is not granted to any group of individuals who all live in a concerned area, that if it is one by one based on proximity in terms of feet, then we probably would not, I don't know, I haven't reviewed the zoning code or the Court of Appeals.
The way, and again, in terms of close proximity, you either have to show that you're an aggrieved party.
Yes.
And there's a substantial interest in a harm to your individual property.
Okay.
If it's a collective, it can't be, for example, of concerned citizens, somebody who lives directly next to it, and then somebody who lives a mile and a half away. Even though you want it to be a collective, that person a mile and a half away doesn't have a substantial interest. They're
Okay.
not going to be aggrieved. They're not going to have an immediate harm.
Okay.
Okay, so what this board's trying to determine is, are all of your collective clients within a close proximity to this to be able to grant them party status?
Can you define close proximity?
Couple hundred feet?
Yeah.
Is that an official zoning board measurement?
No,
A couple hundred feet. I could walk it out tonight, I don't know.
only,
Slow down and let them finish, and one person at a time.
Sorry.
no, that's not an official answer.
It would typically be anybody who received actual notice of the hearing.
Who determines who receives actual notice of the
It's
hearing?
within the zoning. It's usually.
So the zoning code would say that what that
200
measurement
We
is.
usually send actual notice, and I think it's within 200 feet.
And the zoning board determines who receives
No,
notice.
zoning does.
The zoning code. And the zoning board then sends that notice to the people within 200
The
feet.
township does.
The township does. And
Yeah.
you represent the township,
No, I represent the zoning hearing board.
who is part of the township,
It's a separate body.
but funded by the township.
It's still a separate body.
Still paid by your taxes, right?
Well, this isn't we're not gonna get enough.
We appreciate your time. We understand. Thank you.
Now, again, everybody has an opportunity to come up for
We will.
public comment.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Thank you.
For purposes of the stenographer, I have Antonio at 31 East Road and Joshua Trolley at
That's what I have.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anybody else?
I thought I already did. Well, what about her other clients?
You didn't bring them up.
She didn't bring them up. What do you want to?
Or I think we should give them party status.
Okay.
I want to hear if there's an objection, but unless you disagree.
No, that's fine.
that they demonstrated that 31 East Clear Road and 19 East Clear Road are within sufficient proximity, admitting that they didn't.
It's up to the board.
So-
How's the board?
Hey, Regina, Regina? Yes. You,
I'm sorry.
how close are you to the subject property?
I live East Clearfield Road, and I've not lived in Howard Town that long, so I couldn't tell you I'll slow down, what the feet distance is, but I'm 2 blocks. I'm I'm sorry? 0.3 miles? Yeah.
Understood.
I mean, I understand where I live, and I understand that's how zoning works, so yes, that is where I live.
Can you see the property from your place, or
No, I cannot see it.
any questions or anything?
No.
Yes,
I just want to make sure that the testimony was you live 0.3 of a mile from the property.
correct. Yes, and I'm sure my neighbor Josh, who lives a little more close to Darby, is probably a little bit less than that. And we are not here to disrupt the hearing or disrespect this in any way. It's really, so we apologize for seeming like we're wasting anyone's time. It's really a learning process for us as well.
We gotta go through it, so.
Yeah, we're here for it. Thank you.
Well, I think I'll put it to a board vote, party status for first Regina. Bill?
No, I would, that distance is too far.
Jesse?
I would say no.
Jessica?
I would also say no.
Ed?
If I'm clear, it's just for the, representing the two people on Clearfield at this time in herself. Is that what I'm hearing?
For Regina individually.
And to Regina, I group vote not to grant party status.
You what?
Vote not to.
Okay, and I would vote yes to give Regina party status, but she's not being granted party status. With respect to Joshua? Bill?
No.
Jesse? Jessica?
No.
Ed?
No.
And I would vote yes, but he's not being granted party status. You want to go through any other ones?
Regina, is there any, do you want to have any other clients come up? Not this time. Okay, fair enough. Understood. Thank you.
Are we finished with the party status discussion so we can move on? Okay. Louis?
Okay, thank you.
Please proceed.
I have submitted to the zoning hearing board the definition of vehicle refueling station or facility, and my client's engineers will get into the specifics of that. But what's before the board is a proposed gas station or fueling facility and a convenience store of 2,200 square feet. But what is not proposed is what I think consumers or ordinary individuals would think of as the service part of a gasoline service station. And so you will hear testimony tonight that this is basically 4 pumps with a canopy and a convenience store. There will be testimony that there will be no garage bays, no repairs, no junked cars, no cars awaiting servicing, but for the fact that they happen to be parked receiving fuel at the fueling stations, or having somebody go inside the convenience store. You'll hear testimony regarding the history of uses of the property, as well as Mr. Brotzman's experience, both individually and as a trustee and a business person, conducting retail and similar uses in Haverford Township, as well as Delaware County as a whole. And the specifics of the proposed uses. As far as the other witnesses tonight, I have Adam Citrillo, our client's civil engineer, and Guy DiMartino, our traffic engineer. Would the board care to just swear all of my clients' witnesses at this point?
I'll do it one by one as you call them.
Okay, thank you. And so, because, as the testimony will develop, this is more of a vehicle fueling station as defined in the ordinance. to the extent that the relief would be needed for, quote, vehicle fueling, we would ask that the application be amended to reflect that based on the testimony that will be presented this evening. And with that, I would like to start with Mr. Citrullo.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And your full name and the capacity in which you appear?
Adam Citrullo, Citrullo. I'm the site civil engineer.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Citrullo. By whom are you employed?
Bowler Engineering as a project manager.
Have you been qualified as an expert site civil engineer for other zoning hearing boards or municipal governing bodies?
Yes, I've worked at Bowler for almost 9 years now and have testified and been accepted for various municipalities.
And in your professional experience, have you had occasion to design or evaluate proposed gas stations, vehicle fueling stations, and convenience stores?
Yes.
And what factors do you consider in designing or evaluating such facilities?
Sure. So some factors include existing site dimensions and physical conditions, the zoning ordinance requirements, including permitted uses, bulk and area requirements, parking spaces, subdivision and land development ordinance requirements, client intentions for the proposed uses, and other factors such as location and availability of utilities.
Okay, and have you testified on the prior occasions that you just testified to as to variances in connection with the zoning hearing?
Yes.
And shifting on the monitor exhibits to Exhibit B, I will represent that is a Delaware County tax parcel map. Are you familiar with the subject property at 2400 Darby Road?
Yes.
And is it displayed on the monitor as Exhibit B, highlighted or outlined perimeter boundary in red?
Yes.
Excuse me.
Mr. Cordova,
Yes.
if I may, and I apologize for interrupting, I didn't see a CV in the application and the exhibits you presented. Do you intend to have this individual qualified as an expert?
Yes, Mr. Citrullo, could you provide, in lieu of a CV, your educational experience for the record?
Yeah, sure. I have a bachelor's in civil engineering from Penn State. My PE license number in Pennsylvania is 092835.
And you prepared the site plan for the subject property?
Correct.
And you've been personally involved in this evaluation and site plan preparation process?
Yes.
I would ask the board to accept Mr. Citrullo as a civil engineering expert.
Have you ever been qualified as an expert before any zoning hearing board in Delaware County, Montgomery County, or Chester County?
Chester County, Northampton County, yes. Schuylkill County. Yes.
And how long have you been licensed?
I've been licensed since 2021.
And Mr. Codema, you're asking that he be qualified as the expert in civil engineering?
That's correct.
And indicated he's a licensed civil engineer. Any questions from the board?
Any objection or, no? No? All right, we'll accept Adam as a civil engineer.
Thank you.
I should ask Robert, do you have any objection?
No,
Sorry.
Mr. Citrullo, did you hear my opening statements to the zoning hearing board regarding this application?
Yes.
And are you aware of the facts about the application that I related as described in the zoning application?
Yes.
To the best of your knowledge, are they accurate?
Yes.
And do you adopt the statements from my opening remarks as part of your testimony?
Yes.
The site plan that was submitted with the application for variances was prepared by Bowler Engineering for the applicant?
Yes.
Excuse me. And that's Exhibit E?
Yes.
Okay. Could you please walk the board through and the site plan, and I can move the easel closer to the board if the board would so prefer.
No, that's okay. We have a copy.
It might be helpful to move it closer to the board for purposes of those who got party status. I don't know if everybody's got copies of the exhibits.
I don't want to cut off Mr. Talley. On screen is marked as Exhibit E is Bowler Site Plan number C3. Could you please describe what it depicts to the zoning hearing board?
Sure. So the plan before you depicts a 2,200 square foot convenience store as well as a gasoline station with 4 service stations.
Okay. And how would the proposed uses be accessed relative to the plan that's before the board?
Sure. So there's 2 proposed driveways associated with the development. One is off of Darby Road. If you're looking at the plan, it would be Plan North. And the second is, I'm going to call it Plan South off of Eagle Road.
Okay. And I'm showing you on the laptop screen, there is in fact displayed a a shared driveway in the rear. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And the applicant's proposed uses, do they make any utilization of that driveway?
No, there's no connection to that rear shared access.
Okay. And I'm showing you on the screen what's been marked as Exhibit C. Is that correct?
Correct.
I will represent to council and the board that I took this photo and the next photo on or about the first week of July 2024. And that's Exhibit D. Is that also a site photo from the opposite angle?
Yes.
All right. And the site is located in the C3 commercial district?
Yes.
Okay. And are there already existing uses abutting and adjacent and across the street?
Yes. So just to describe that, I guess in particular, I'm going to call it the rear portion, or to the north, if you will, is abutting that common. Sorry.
Let me pull up the site plan.
That rear portion to the north abutting that common driveway. The adjacent use is a dentist's office. The frontage along Eagle Road, I'm going to call it south across Eagle Road, is a church. I'm going to call it the western property line. The adjacent use is Nudi's Cafe. And then east across Darby's Road faces Cat's Pharmacy.
And just for the record, we're referencing Exhibit E, correct?
Yes, Exhibit E, the site plan.
Thank you.
Okay. Could you please describe the parcel in terms of square footage?
Sure. The parcel to the right-of-way line is 27,538 square feet, or 0.632 acres.
And does Exhibit E provide a buffer area?
Yes, correct. There's a required buffer along the north, which is complied with.
And this is a corner lot
That is correct.
at Darby and Eagle?
That is correct.
Does it have 2 front yard setbacks?
That's correct.
And both roads are state roads?
That is correct.
And how are you familiar with this property?
So I visited this property in person in the past. My firm Bowler has worked on a few concepts on this specific property. Additionally, as part of that effort, we've reviewed the township zoning ordinance and provisions applicable to the proposed gas station and convenience store.
And As to Exhibit E, what's reflected on the screen as the convenience store, could you please describe, oh, I'm sorry, I'm pointing to what's on the screen as the canopy and the fueling stations. Could you please describe those?
Sure. So that canopy is 107 feet long, 28 feet wide, totals to approximately 300 square feet. That results in about 10.98% of lot cover. It is set back from Darby's Road 29.1 feet, where 20 feet minimum is required. It is set back from Eagle Road by 29.2 feet, where a 20-foot building setback is required.
And how many fuel pump stations are proposed?
4.
And a car could use either side of the pump stations, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Could you please describe the proposed parking, both required and provided?
Sure. So the code for gas stations, gas stations ultimately requires basically a space that is necessary for vehicle purchasing gasoline, and ultimately we are providing the spaces necessary immediately adjacent to these pumps for those vehicles to purchase gasoline.
Okay. And in this design site plan, there's no garage or service bays proposed or shown?
That's correct.
Okay. And there's no repair or service area provided or shown?
That's correct.
Again, I'd ask you to turn your attention to this Exhibit E, the proposed convenience store with food service that I am pointing on the laptop screen. Could you please describe the convenience store with food service as depicted on the plan?
Sure. The convenience store is 2,200 square feet in area. Its side yard, I'm going to call it along the western property line, is set back 10 feet from that property line. It is set back from the rear, which I'm going to call the lot line to the north, by 68.3 feet. And the building cover for just that convenience store is 2,200 square feet, which equates to 8% of the lot area.
And could you please talk about the existing versus the proposed impervious cover?
Sure. So existing, the site is 100% impervious. Proposed, we are proposing 74.6% impervious cover, so a reduction in impervious cover from existing.
Could you please describe by reference to the plan Exhibit E, the striped parking spaces, the number provided, and what the code requirements are?
Yeah, so the code requires 12 parking spaces for a retail convenience store. We are proposing, I apologize, 11 are required. We are proposing 12. They are located striped on this plan to the north and south of the convenience store.
And so the proposed parking for the gas station or vehicle fueling station and the convenience store are such that no variance for parking is needed?
Correct.
And relative to the entire site layout, no dimensional variances are being sought as to any aspect of the site layout before the board?
That's correct.
Have you examined the C3 zoning district allowed by right uses?
Yes.
And have you had the opportunity to consider whether or not they're feasible or infeasible as applied to this subject property?
Yes. There's some various uses that are permitted that ultimately, from a lot size perspective, the size of the lot would not be adequate. Those would include a department store, a hardware chain, or an electronics store. Additionally, a supermarket or a hotel, motel, or inn.
And again, what size lot is this dimensionally?
recall offhand the length and width. If you give me a moment, I can pull it off the plan, but it is 0.632 acres.
If I were to show you the Delaware County public record for this, what would that indicate?
It indicates it's 222 feet by 172 feet.
And by regular?
I'm sorry?
Does it say 222 x 17 x IRR?
That is correct.
Did you, in the course of your preparation of the plan and investigation of the site, look into what prior efforts were made to develop the property and what, if any, zoning relief was previously granted?
Correct.
And what, could you summarize for the board what that research turned up?
Sure. So prior, it was developed and installed as a gas station. It subsequently came through the township for a plan for a Walgreens as well as a bank.
The Walgreens was never developed.
That's correct.
The bank did receive variances for a Republic Bank branch with drive-through,
That's correct.
but it was never developed as a bank. It never was constructed, I should say, as a bank branch with drive-through.
That's correct.
And the subject property was in use previously as gas station?
That is correct.
And I will have Mr. Brodsman testify in more detail regarding the prior uses. In terms of site constraints, this is a corner property, correct?
That is correct.
Intersection of two state highways.
That is correct.
Development as depicted on this plan will require PennDOT highway occupancy permits to be applied for and secured.
Yes.
In your conferring with Mr. Brodsman on behalf of the applicant, was there a desire to reduce the driveways from the prior use?
Yes, correct.
And how is that achieved on this plan that's shown?
So currently, there are 2 driveways onto Darby Road and 2 driveways onto Eagle Road. The desire was to reduce that, and now we're proposing 1 onto Darby and 1 onto Eagle.
In order to minimize the relief requested from this board, did the applicant confer with you regarding reducing the size of the convenience store?
Yes, that's correct.
And is what's shown before the board the smallest size convenience store acceptable to the applicant, taking into consideration the 4-pump gas or vehicle refueling location?
Yes.
Okay. Will the applicant, through the land development application process, should the board grant the variances, incorporate landscaping and other improvements that would not be shown on this zoning plan?
Yes, correct. If this were to proceed to land development, various land development detailing would be provided at that time.
Will the requested use variances, if granted, interfere with usage of or development of surrounding properties or the neighborhood?
No.
And why is that? Will the variances...
You should question from those mics.
Will the variances, if granted, interfere with usage or development of surrounding properties or the neighborhood? I believe, Mr. Trullo, you testified no, and I was about to ask you why, or, why is that the case in your belief?
So the site was prior operating as a gas station.
And across the street, there's a Grace Chapel Church.
That's correct.
Adjacent to the property is a Nudies Cafe.
That's correct.
I believe you were here when certain persons who this board has admitted as parties testified in relation to their locations relative to Katz's Pharmacy on the corner.
That's correct.
And other persons testified relative to their location next to or at a corner from the dentist office to the rear of the subject property.
Correct.
Okay. Would the gas station and convenience store be subject to existing and future laws and regulations applicable to a gas station and a convenience store, or a vehicle fueling station and a convenience store?
Yes, that's correct.
What's the foundation for his expertise in that particular field?
That's just a general, he's testified that he's developed plans for gas stations and convenience stores, and they have to go through the land development process, which he testified to. That's the extent of questions.
We can't hear you. We can't hear.
Sorry, Mr. Citrullo has already testified that this would have to go through the land development and ordinances of the township, and he's already testified that he's previously worked on the design and development of gas station and convenience stores, and that's the limit of the question.
Okay, so the question is relevant to whether or not, as a civil engineer, this property would have to go through land development, be subject to land development ordinances through the township.
That's correct.
I think that's it.
Well, I'm not sure that was the question. The question went to impacts on neighboring properties and,
Well, that was the question before.
okay, so again, why is a civil site engineer here who's qualified as that being asked questions as an expert on alternative uses of other neighboring properties or impacts of this project on other neighboring properties? I'm just trying to understand what the foundation for that line of question.
So in designing this plan, Mr. Citrullo has to look at the particular ordinances of the township, among other things, which address those particular concerns as to setbacks and locations of particular structures and impervious coverage and all those things. So this is really questions focused from a site civil engineer relative to what would need to be designed should this plan advance further into the Saldo process.
You're not asking any questions about you're not asking any questions about the impacts on neighboring properties. You're just focusing only on this property. Is that right?
That's correct. I will have Mr. Brotzman testify. He's had ownership of this property previously, both individually and from a corporate or trust perspective. But those are all the questions I have for Mr. Citrullo, if council would like to.
Absolutely.
You have questions, Robert?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Citrullo. You would agree with me, would you not, that neither use that you're proposing on this plan are permitted uses in this zoning district?
No, the convenience store is permitted.
Under what section?
One moment.
In the interest of time, do you mind if I
That's fine.
One moment.
Perhaps we can speed this up. It doesn't say convenience store in C3 district, does it?
It does not say convenience store, no.
In the C2 district, does the zoning code permit convenience stores? Perhaps to speed this up, perhaps the board can take judicial notice of its own zoning code, that in a C2 district, it is specifically mentioned that convenience stores are permitted.
We all have a copy of the code up there, so.
That would be accurate under 182, 403, B1B.
Mr. Citrillo, you indicated that there were abutting properties and some of the uses for those properties, correct?
That's correct.
And are they permitted uses under the C3 zoning district?
So the one abutting use would be a fast food, which is ultimately permitted, yes.
And which use is that? Would that be?
That would be the Nudies Cafe.
And across the street, there's a pizza place. Is that a permitted use?
Across Darby Road. If it's considered a restaurant, takeout restaurant, yes, it would be permitted.
There's also a breakfast place across the street. Is that a permitted use?
If it would be considered a restaurant, yes.
And the pharmacy is a permitted use?
Yes.
And you indicated that your company looked at a couple different development options for this property.
That's correct.
What were the other options?
There were various options associated with the gas station.
Were there any non-gas station uses?
Yes.
And what were they?
One was a fast food with a drive-through.
And why wasn't that option selected to be pursued?
It was determined through the design that the lot wasn't large enough to accommodate both the building size from a fast food use that we were looking for, as well as the drive-through.
You indicated that the neighboring property was a fast food use. And would you agree with me that that is a smaller property than the subject property?
I don't know the exact size of that property.
That's your drawing, isn't it?
Yes, that property isn't ultimately fully dimensioned on that, but in general, I think you're getting at visually, it appears to be thinner.
Anything else other than a fast food restaurant?
No.
Did you look at just the convenience store on this property?
No.
Why not?
That wasn't the desire of the applicant when I was preparing the plan.
And did you look at just gas pumps on this property?
No.
Are you aware of the zoning code's definition of a non-conforming use?
Yes.
And what is that?
So non-conforming use, and give me one moment, because I don't know it offhand, but I have reviewed it. So non-conforming use per code is a use whether of land or of a structure which does not comply with the application use provisions of this chapter or any amendment heretofore or hereafter enacted where such use was lawfully in existence prior to the enactment of this chapter or amendment.
When this property was used as a gas station, was it a lawful non-conforming use?
I'm not exactly sure when that ordinance came into effect, but I believe it was, yes.
And when was this property last used as a gas station?
I believe it was, I apologize, I don't recall the exact number, but it was several years ago.
And are you aware of the abandonment provision in the code of a non-conforming use?
Yes.
And what is that time period?
I believe it's 5
5 what?
years.
I believe it's 6 months.
Oh, apologize.
And if the, I don't have the section, I do have the section. It'll take me 1 second. I'd like to show you that and ask you, section 182-802. Could you review that and then tell me what the time period is?
The time period is at the effective date of this chapter, a subsequent amendment thereto.
No, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking about the abandonment.
Yeah, yeah.
I think, again, the board can take notice of its own code section. However, the discontinuance is section C1, and it says, if the non-conforming use, I'll let you read that.
Sure. So the C discontinuance, C1, is if a non-conforming use of land or building ceases operations for a continuous period of more than 6 months, so apologize, I was incorrect, then this shall be deemed to be an intent to abandon such use, and any subsequent use of land shall conform to the regulations of this chapter.
Can you repeat that last line?
And any subsequent use of land shall conform to the regulations of this chapter.
You would agree with me that that gas station use has been abandoned per the code?
Yes.
And it was never used as a convenience store, correct?
I don't believe so, no.
Could this property be used as a store?
Can you define store?
A general merchandise store.
I don't know offhand. I'd have to review from a specific conceptual perspective. It would depend on the size of store you're looking for and the required parking associated.
Well, you indicated that this lot is 27,538 square feet, correct?
Yes.
And you're telling me that you can't conceptualize a store fitting on this lot that would meet the code?
I don't know offhand what the parking required is for that, so no.
Well, you were putting a convenience store that you reviewed the parking requirements, right?
Yes.
And you're able to meet that for the convenience store. You don't think a general merchandise store could meet that?
It really depends on the layout. Obviously, this is a different use. It has the canopies. It depends on the specific layout. So no, I don't know offhand.
And what about a gift shop? Could it be used as a gift shop, developed as a gift shop?
My answer would be the same.
But the surrounding properties, could it be used as an office?
My answer would continue to be the same. I'd have to review it from a specific conceptual perspective to ensure it meets the cover requirements, the building coverage requirements, the impervious, and the parking, which is obviously different for these.
Testified, though, that this gas station convenience store used is the only use that you could see this property being put to.
I don't recall testifying to that specifically.
So you agree that there could be other uses that, for which this property could be developed?
There's certainly
Let me ask you
potentially could, if I look at it from a conceptual perspective, depending on those various requirements.
You're a professional engineer. Do you believe this property could be developed in any way in compliance with the zoning ordinance?
If you can ask that in another way, I might be able to answer it. I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
I'm asking you that under section C3 of the zoning code, there are specific uses for which this property could be developed. We've indicated that the property next to it is already a restaurant. It's in the same zoning district, and it's a larger property. This property could also be developed in conformance with the zoning code, correct?
If you want me to speak specifically, once again, I have to look at it, but in general, I think you could put other various uses on here.
Thank you. I think that's all I have at the moment. Thank you.
Louis, redirect. Do you have any questions? Okay. Please come up to the microphone.
Mr. Citrullo, the application presented or filed is for use variances. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
And there was no argument presented or exhibits submitted in connection with any argument to resurrect any prior non-conforming use.
That's correct.
And so this is entirely for new variances.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Nothing? Jesse?
Just for the record, the gas tanks that previously existed have been removed from the site, is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
Do you know if the site was remediated for the proposed bank that was going to go in there?
I'm not aware of that.
I don't have any other questions.
Well,
Yep. So I'm going to follow up on that line of question. You're not aware of any remediation that has taken place on this site? I was going to ask for more broadly, not just for the Republic Bank.
I'm not aware specifically. Perhaps someone else may be able to testify.
Are you,
Chairman, can
Yes.
I, just for the record, make a representation? I will represent to the zoning hearing board that Blackwater Falls Trust was required to deconstruct the gas station and remove the canopy, remove the gas pumps, remove the tanks in accordance with PADEP requirements for that sort of work. It engaged an environmental consultant. There is still ongoing monitoring of the site by the prior owner, Cumberland Farms, but it did receive approval for the work that it did relative to removing the gas tanks, the pumps, the canopy. Because Cumberland Farms is a prior owner, it still is obligated contractually and otherwise to periodically do groundwater sampling. If that answers your question.
yeah, so there was, at some point in the past, there was some environmental contamination of this site.
Yes, I believe the soils that were discovered in that process were reported as being contaminated in part, not, I think, from the gas station pumps themselves, but from an accessory tank. And again, all that, I think, would be covered through the land development process. But the bank would not have closed on the property and moved forward with a bank development unless those environmental activities had occurred.
Okay. Unfortunately, the bank's not here to testify on that on its own. So let me ask a couple other questions. Are you familiar with Eagle Road design standards that the township had put in place a number of years ago?
No.
Okay. When you go to land development, you may get those questions, and you may want to take a look at the design standards. To that end, on the site plan, which is, I believe, your Exhibit E, there is no depiction of where any vegetation would be planted. I think you testified, we do see that there would be some, but you're not showing us exactly where that would be. Let me just ask you, can you depict, other than the trees along the property line with Nudi's Cafe, it looks like you may have a tree up on the alley to the north, and some sort of planter boomerang-shaped thing at the corner. Is that the extent of the planting or buffering that you would be proposing?
No, that wouldn't be the intent. The intent would be to comply with the ordinance.
You mentioned that you have 12 parking spots striped north and south of the convenience store, correct?
Correct.
And how many of those are within the front yard setback?
4 of them.
Okay, so a third of your designated parking spots are sitting in the front yard setback.
Yes, that's a building setback, correct.
Currently, the surface area of this, how would you describe the surface area today of this lot?
So today, there's pavement. I describe it as some sort of bituminous pavement as towards the outer edges. In the middle, obviously, the prior improvements were removed, and there's ultimately some very compacted gravel towards the middle.
Okay, so you had testified earlier, I believe, that you were going to reduce the impervious coverage in this plan. What, by your calculation, how much of the lot is currently considered impervious?
So I'm saying 100% that's based on leaning back on what DEP typically requires you to design from a stormwater perspective. When you have gravel, they require you to contemplate that as impervious.
Is that how the township would view? We just heard a prior applicant talk about gravel that is considered pervious. Jonathan, if you have a sense, I'd be interested. Can you cite to this board the law on treating gravel as impervious?
I don't know if it's a law cited, but once again, I've done almost 9 years of permitting throughout the state, and every MPDS permit that I've permitted with the DEP, they don't permit you to treat gravel as pervious. They require you to treat it as impervious.
And then where is the DEP rules or regs incorporated by reference into our township zoning code such that it would be binding on the township?
I'm not sure.
Let's talk about the access, the driveways in and out. As you're envisioning this as the site engineer, would either of these entry or exits be limited in the direction in which traffic could flow? And I know we have a traffic consultant coming. I'm asking you as a site engineer, the design of this, where do you think that traffic could turn from either direction on Darby and Eagle in and out of this lot?
So that's ultimately something I'd probably lean on the traffic engineer to opine on, but right now they're intended for someone to turn in and out of. Whether it's a left turn is probably what you're getting at. That I'd probably have to suggest I'd ask the traffic engineer what his opinion is on that.
So you have not designed that the entry or exit ways here would be angled in such a way as to direct traffic to only, for instance, pull out of this site in one direction?
No, and I think the line of question you're getting down is ultimately something that would have to be vetted out as it continues to go through the land development and specifically PennDOT permitting.
All I'm asking is, as you were conceiving this plan, you were envisioning that anyone could turn left coming out of either of these entrances?
Yeah, during this design, correct.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
Ed?
Yeah, the two questions I have is that you had in the application, it references two other cases for this site, Royal Bank and Walgreens. Do you know the status, what happened when it came through, what the decision of the zoning board was?
I don't recall the specific status, no.
Yeah, I believe they were both approved, so that's what I was.
That was my understanding, but I just don't recall them at this moment in time.
No other questions.
Jessica?
I don't have any questions.
And now, Michael, right? Well, because you've been given party status, you have an opportunity to cross-examine the witness. But if you don't have to, if you don't want to. You can still come make your public comment. But if you do cross-examine, you have to maintain a certain decorum. You don't badger them, you don't make statements and then say yes, no, you know. Okay. Same opportunity.
I suggest you use that.
Didn't watch the latest couple episodes of Law and Order to bone up. I'm kidding.
Hi, Mr. Citrillo.
And your name is Julia, right? Julia
Yes,
Brooks.
Julia Brooks.
Okay.
I have a question about the property line that comes to the alley. I only see the 4 parking spots on the Grace Chapel side or the Eagle Road side. You said there's 12 parking spots total for the convenience store. I only see lines on the top, maybe 4
Sure.
lines. Where's the rest of the parking spots?
If you don't mind, I can walk over here and point them to you.
So this is Exhibit E that you're referring to, correct?
Yes.
I'm pointing to the parking spaces to the north of the plan. Operating curb and
Okay, you said there was a total of 12, I see?
I'm just pointing to the various.
So these are parking spots on this side and parking spots here?
Wait. So number one, please speak up. And number two, you can't talk over one another because Arlene really needs to keep a clean record. And she'll execute me after this meeting if I don't cause that to happen. Right, Ed?
I have a question as to what would be put in place to prevent people from entering and exiting on the alley side?
So, and I'm going to go over a point and then I can come back. So the area, hopefully that depicted it enough for you. I was pointing at a proposed curb. So ultimately that's your standard curb where the pavement is ultimately at the lower end. The curb it would be, and I haven't fully designed any grading, but the intent is that it is a typical 6-inch reveal curb to prevent any vehicles from typically driving over into that alley.
And that curb would be the full length, except for that one corner where you have, I believe they referenced planting.
One moment, let me point it to you. So I just pointed further to the curb.
That's the only question I have. Do you have a question, Bill?
Yes, where's the dumpster going?
Wait. So, no.
He's not sworn in.
Okay. This one.
And he wasn't given party status either.
He does reside at 15 West Hillcrest Avenue for the last 12 years.
Do you know what his question is?
Yes.
Why don't you just ask it? Nothing personal, but you didn't get party status on the record. So you can make whatever public comment you want, but
Where would the dumpster be?
So obviously don't have that contemplated on the plan before you. It would be operational to the convenience store. I think the obvious areas are, if I can just point it.
so
Yeah, and I just want to be clear, that's not defined at this point, so it's obviously flexible.
Okay, anything else, Julie?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Can I follow up on that line of question? Thank you. So you were suggesting that the dumpster might go into the only place that a car could back out and out of those 5 parking spots on the north edge, and then be able to pull out into the space over the tanks or between the convenience store and the canopy. You'd be expecting them to back out of that?
I think there's flexibility to push it further away from that area. I'd have to do a turning maneuver on it. Obviously, you need to ensure that, it can be accessed in that regard. I think there's opportunity, and once again, this is the plan before you now. The dumpster's not contemplated. We're below maximum permitted impervious cover here. I think there's certainly opportunity to shift it other various locations, perhaps into some grass areas if we want to convert that to impervious, but.
And then, so I'll get to fuel deliveries, store deliveries. Where are those trucks supposed to park to unload in your conceptual planning?
Yeah, so conceptually, we have that area gored to the north. The intent would be that ultimately that may be occurring. It also depends on operationally. I find that these typically, loading operations occur off hours, if you will. So, presumably, typically I find that the delivery truck comes in, we have the gored out area, they could unload it there, and if it's palletized, bring it across the drive aisle. And once again, that occurs off hours, so we don't typically see any conflict with that.
What's the gored area that you're thinking?
May I point it to you?
Sure. Oh, okay.
Reflected, Mr. Trullo approached the plan and pointed, I don't know if you can also point to reference.
And so what happens if one of these delivery trucks arrives in the middle of the day? You send them away and tell them to come back at night?
I think that's something that would have to be spoken to operationally.
Okay, and you don't think that any delivery truck, whether it's fuel, let's say that the fuel truck arrives, and then the food delivery truck arrives at the same time. Now, what are you gonna? Where are people parking? Where do you think this is?
Yeah, I mean, that's operationally something that, frankly occurs on lots these size with developments of this size. Not saying that specifically occurs, but obviously loading and fuel operations occur at various gas stations all the time. It's operationally something that I think would have to be spoken to.
Based on the board's questions, may I?
Julia, do you have?
I do have another question. What are the hours of operation that they're?
The next witness will deal with operational questions.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Robert.
Thank you. Are you aware that the zoning ordinance requires a 12 by 60 foot loading zone, unloading zone?
Yes.
And that is required to be at the rear of the building, correct?
I'm not aware of that specifically, but if you're stating that and are going to point the section to
I'll
me,
show
I'll
you
assume
the
that's correct.
ordinance.
What's the section, Robert?
The section is 182-6 708.
And where do you see rear specifically? Yes, that's what the code says.
So you would need a variant also for that requirement of the code.
Depends on what you're defining as rear of the building. And operationally, I think that's something that needs to be spoken to. I certainly can see loading occurring here.
Well, where's the front of the building?
So it's on a corner lot, so obviously that's a little confusing. It could really be facing Darby Road or Eagle Road.
So you would agree if the front of the building is facing Darby Road, you would not have a loading zone at the rear of the building?
Yeah, correct. It could be facing Eagle as well.
And you have not applied for a variance from that requirement of the zoning code?
No, I mean, ultimately, that's something that, as a tenant gets identified, they would have to confirm which side is their front and rear.
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead.
Mr. Citrullo, you consulted with me and the applicant in preparing the application for variances, is that correct?
Correct.
And does not the zoning application also in the request for relief request variances from any other sections that may be necessary?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have one follow-up question. And I'm not sure if Mr. Citrullo can answer this, but Mr. Caldwell, you testified that you took the photos in Exhibit C and D, so maybe you can answer the question, but I'll ask now, and if neither of you can answer, please say so, and then if it's an operational question. There are tanks of some sort that are currently that are visible in.
His question is for the witness, not for you.
Oh, I thought he
His
raised it.
questions for the witness. Go ahead, Joseph.
Oh, I'm sorry. In exhibits, looking at Exhibit C, there's a fenced area around the site, and there are some kinds of tanks on site. Does that have anything to do with ongoing remediation of the site?
Sorry. I'm trying to move the.
Yeah, sorry.
Are these the photos that you're
Yes.
referring to?
Yeah,
Mr.
Exhibit C.
Poynton?
Yeah. What are those tanks?
I will represent, and Mr. Brotzman will testify further, and the township is certainly aware of this, the Community Development Department and the township manager. I will make an offer of proof that what is being stored on the site presently in Exhibit C and D, I'm sorry, Adam, can you move that out of there? Are not the applicant's property, but the applicant, in coordination with the township and the contractor for the Environmental Protection Agency that is doing a project across from the Y. The EPA is doing a groundwater treatment plant that's being constructed across from the Y. I don't have a street address, but the long story short is they don't have room at that site to be storing industrial tanks and pipes and construction equipment. And so the prior owner, the bank, cooperated with the township and the contractor for the EPA at the time. And the contractor for the EPA has changed since, but the applicant's trustee would testify that what's stored there now is not the applicant's property, and it's not being used to treat anything on the applicant's site. It's not gas station equipment. It's not gas station tanks. This is all equipment and property and construction materials of the federal EPA or its contractor.
Have the owner of the property testify to that, or at least accept your recitation?
That's fine.
Does that answer your question, Jess?
It does, and yeah, my other question, I guess, will be for the owner applicant.
If we're finished with this witness, I have no questions. I can't imagine there's anything that hasn't been asked. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Off the record, Jeff, please. We'll resume the meeting of Haverford Township Zoning Hearing Board. Okay. Please proceed, Lou.
Thank you. I would like to call as my next witness Mr. Robert E. Brotzman on behalf of Black Waterfalls Trust. please speak into the microphone and
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And your full name and address for the record?
Robert E. Brotsman III, 1069 Bald Eagle Drive, Marco Island, Florida.
Go ahead, Louis.
thank you. Brotsman, are you the sole trustee of applicant Blackwater Falls?
Yes, I am.
Is Blackwater Falls Trust the current owner of the subject property having a street address of 2400 Darby Road in Haverford Township?
Yes.
Is a copy of your deed attached to the application for variances?
Yes.
Okay. If I were to consult the Delaware County assessment, real estate assessment records for the ownership history, would you have any reason to doubt the county's ownership history records?
No.
I will represent that the public access records indicate that there was a sale date from Gulf Oil to Cumberland Farms in June 2nd, 1986, followed by a sale to Robert E. Brotsman III individually in November 20th, 2007, followed by a transfer from you individually to the trust with you as trustee for Blackwater Falls Trust of 8/17/2009, and a subsequent transfer from the trust to Republic First Bank, doing business as Republic Bank, September 8th, 2020, and then the final sale being a sale from Republic First Bank, DBA Republic Bank, to Blackwater Falls Trust with you as the trustee, with a sale date of December 28, 2023. Would you agree that that is a true and accurate recital of the ownership history since at least 1986?
Yes, all of that's correct.
Okay. I cannot remember which of the zoning hearing board members asked this question, but can you answer when the gas station that you last operated, when that stopped being a gas station, roughly what date? And when I say stop being a gas station, I mean from the process where it was deconstructed before you went to closing with Republic Bank.
Okay. That would be in 2020.
Please describe your history of developing commercial properties and operating businesses in both Haverford Township and Delaware County, both individually and in trustee and in corporate capacities.
Object to relevance. We're here on a specific application. I don't see how it's relevant to the application.
If I may, the whole subject is use variances for a gas station. I think my client is entitled to testify regarding prior experience in gas station fueling operations, especially since multiple members of the board have asked questions relating to the gas station.
So he would be testifying at that point in his own experience, not obviously as an expert, not offering it as an expert in this.
I would as to gas station operations. I would like to be able to lay a foundation to have him testify about his experience with gas station operations.
See how far it goes.
Okay. Mr. Brotsman, please explain your background as an owner and operator of gas stations in Delaware County and related auto businesses.
Sure. Been in it my whole life.
How old are you?
59. My father had a gas station, a Chevron, if you guys remember, at Westchester Pike and Eagle Road. Worked there when I was young. My first station I ran on my own was a golf station at Westchester Pike and Eagle Road, where the Starbucks is right now. I left there and purchased a property just down the street on Darby Road here, currently pit stop. Built that basically from the ground up. Since then, I purchased the property at 2400 Darby Road. Continued that as a gas station. I purchased that from Cumberland Farms. And then the final one, I purchased a property at Westchester Pike and Eagle Road, the current Sunoco station. In 2014, I purchased that from Sunoco.
And what is the address of the Sunoco station?
It's 1301 Westchester Pike.
Okay. And in the course of developing and operating the various gas stations, would you have operational knowledge of questions that have been asked tonight by members of this zoning hearing board, such as food truck deliveries, such as gas replenishment deliveries, and similar deliveries?
I'd be able to talk about the gas portion of it. My current station just down the street is a repair garage in addition to gas. The place, actually, the one I tore down at 2400 Darby Road was also a repair shop. And the current Sunoco, which is changing names next week, is also a 6-bay repair garage. So I can answer questions about the gas. Going into the convenience store will be something new for me.
And you would also have the experience of engaging an environmental consultant and other consultants, Ferguson and McCann, and experience in decommissioning the former gas station that Republic Bank required you to decommission. Is that correct?
Yes. I would have all knowledge about that. I'm the one who took everything out, all the tanks, all the underground stuff, the canopy, the building. I did all that. I do own other property outside of Haverford Township, Marple Township, and also Euclid Township. And every single property that I currently do own at one time used to be a gas station, so I'm very familiar with that.
And are you familiar with dispatching and receipt of various vehicle fuels and working with other contractors, whether or not they were doing repair work or signage work for a gas station?
Yes, yeah, I've been doing that my whole life.
Mr. Angelos, I think that's a sufficient foundation to describe his experience with gasoline and refueling of vehicles.
I don't know why we're laying this foundation. He hasn't I don't know what the area expertise. Yes, I understand that, but an expert in what? Said
Gasoline and retail vehicle fueling.
I mean, I think he can testify that his knowledge of operations of gas stations.
That's what he would be testifying to. There have been several questions asked.
I don't know the level of expertise in that, but I think he certainly testified to his experience in the ownership of his gas stations and what he's gone through specifically with regard to this property.
But I'm sorry.
I mean, Robert,
Question?
are you keeping your objection, or?
Well, I mean, as an expert, he'd be asked to offer an opinion. I don't know what opinion he could offer that would be beneficial to this case. I think the testimony is largely irrelevant. We agree that gas needs to be delivered, and also that, there's some, if he wants to answer the board's questions about his experience with that and the running of the gas station, I think that's fine, but I don't know why we would qualify him as an expert to offer an opinion when he's a party to the case.
I think his expertise is to his experience firsthand.
Yeah, look, I tend to agree with counsel with regard to the expert. I mean, we are before the zoning hearing board, and rules of evidence are laxed. But yeah, I think his testimony should be focused particularly on his experience with regard to this particular property and what he's done on this property, rather than opining as to whether or not a gas station, and I'm guessing the question is whether or not a gas station is a conducive use to this property.
Well, it's among the criteria that the variances require as to whether or not this will be.
Are you gonna qualify him as an expert in zoning?
No, but he can testify, I believe, regarding his experience in operating the gas station at this property for multiple years before he decommissioned it.
I mean, I think
My response to that would be, that's irrelevant. You know, the fact that it was a gas station before does not matter to this case. The only question here is the hardship and what needs to be proven in order to obtain variances. None of his experience is relevant.
It is relevant relative to the safety aspect and his operational experience. I think he's entitled to testify to that.
Look, I think, yeah, I think we'll allow testimony relevant to his experience in operating a gas station, but as to whether he's asked expert questions or opine as to the particular use of the property, whether or not a gas station is conducive for this site, I think you're going to deal as a fact witness. I'm not sure he's qualified as an expert.
So as I understand it, the ruling is he's limited to testifying as a gas station expert limited to this site.
I would say as a fact witness limited to his experience and operating the site previously.
All right, Mr. Brotsman, please describe your past and current experience, well, not current experience, please describe your past experience in operating a station, selling gasoline and vehicle fuels in Haverford Township at this site. What was involved in like a typical day?
Well, at this particular site, I ran it as a gas station from 2007 to, I guess, right around 2019 or so. It's basically open up 6 a.m. We would close at, I believe, 10. It did have a repair shop. There was. I did lease that out to somebody to work on cars. And we just had a small snack shop in there. So it was just cars coming in, filling up with gas, leaving, placing orders, gas orders. It's really not that difficult.
And so it was selling various types of gasoline fuels?
It was selling all brands of gas and also diesel.
Was it also selling windshield washer fluid and other vehicle kinds of fluids?
Yes, motor oil, transmission fluid, steering fluid, that automotive stuff, yes.
Did it sell cold drinks, snacks, candy?
Yes, basic stuff, all prepackaged and all that.
Okay. And you testified that the gas station is part of the sale. Oh, all right, let me back up. You previously testified that the gas station was closed in connection with the sale?
Yes.
And when you were present here this evening, you were present from the very start of the hearing?
Yes, I was.
You heard my opening remarks?
Yes.
You also heard my explanation to the questions about the member, from the member of the zoning hearing board regarding what is shown now on Exhibits C and D? Were you here for that?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And you heard my explanation or representation to the zoning hearing board that what is depicted in Exhibit C and Exhibit D the photos from July of 2024. Those are all property of the Federal Environmental Protection Agency and/or its contractor being used not for work at this site, but in support of the EPA's Superfund project across from the Y. Is that correct?
Correct. Everything that's on the property, on the site right now, is for the environmental that's going on down the street. They, meaning, I assume the Fed, put up that fence.
The contractor?
The contractor, yes. Put up the fence and
The contractors
everything.
The contractors consulted with the township, to your knowledge?
Yes, yes.
And Blackwater Falls Trust has a license between it and the EPA's contractor that allows the EPA and/or the contractor to store those construction materials, pipes, tanks for the EPA's project elsewhere on this property on a temporary basis.
Correct, and also at no price. Okay, so it's,
the public's
I'm
not
allowing
being
them to
charged for this.
use the property for free right now.
Okay. And none of that's for a convenience store, what's shown on the screen?
No, not at all.
All right. Let's describe the proposed uses for the 4 fueling pumps, which are submitted as part of the vehicle refueling, as I've described it before. This would just be for the pumps selling fuel, correct? Petroleum products, gasoline.
Correct.
There would be no sales or rentals of motor vehicles like a Hertz site.
No.
Okay. There wouldn't be any kind of sales like a Napa Auto or a Pep Boys or an AutoZone type of use?
No.
There would be no service bays for vehicle repairs?
No.
There would be no body shop or auto painting facility?
No.
No mechanics on staff?
No mechanics.
Okay. No storage of vehicles awaiting repairs?
None.
Could you please switch the screen to the Bowler plan?
Me?
I'm showing what's been marked as Exhibit E. It's the Bowler plan, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And you heard the testimony tonight from Mr. Citrullo that the way this plan is designed, there's no proposed ingress or egress through the rear shared driveway?
Yes, I made that very specific that it, I did not want to use that driveway at all.
Okay. And based on your immediate testimony regarding those fueling pumps, do you agree that you're requesting that the zoning hearing board consider amendment to your application necessary to reflect variances for a 4-pump vehicle fueling station, given that you've testified there would be no repairs or similar services?
Correct.
There was a question asked by one of the members of the zoning hearing board for what are the intended hours of operation for both uses. I believe that was asked. Can you talk about the hours of operation?
Yes, it would be about 5 a.m., opening up at 5, closing at 11 at night. It would not be a 24-hour site like a Wawa or a 7-Eleven.
And the 2,200 square foot convenience store, what would you intend would be sold from that convenience store? The types of goods, foods, products?
Basic convenience store sodas, possibly another company coming in and having a franchise in there. But for the most part, it would just be the basic stuff that you would get at Wawa or any other convenience store.
Is it your understanding that the convenience store under the township requirements allows prepackaged and other types of food, sodas, snacks, candy?
Yes.
Would the store comply with any applicable township restrictions on the sale of vaping supplies?
Yes.
Could you describe the property and its conditions by geographical location?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
All right. It's at the intersection of Eagle and Darby. Is that correct?
Yes.
You heard the testimony from Mr. Citrullo earlier. I believe that ingress and egress would be one driveway at Eagle and one driveway at Darby.
That's correct.
No ingress or egress through the rear, even though it's shared driveway.
No, none at all.
And that would be, what I just described would be a reduction compared to multiple driveway prior use?
You could enter, before you could enter off of the driveway to come onto the lot. Now there'll just be a curb so that nobody can, we're not going to use the driveway at all.
Okay. You heard Mr. Citrullo's testimony that he couldn't necessarily opine to other proposed uses because they would depend on the nature of the uses. You're not looking to, for lack of a legal term, resurrect any prior use that doesn't comply with the township abandonment standards. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You've applied for new use variances from the zoning ordinance relating to the convenience store use and the fueling use, whether or not you consider it a fueling station or a gas station.
Correct.
You heard Mr. Citrullo's testimony that he looked at the site for other potential uses, including a restaurant type of use. Have you considered a restaurant type of use? And if you did, why are you proposing this instead of a restaurant?
Well, the only interest was from fast food restaurants. You know, you name it, they would probably want to be there, but I'm not quite sure that the township would be receptive of a drive-through at that intersection.
Drive-through would require a special exception, is that your understanding?
That's my understanding.
I believe you testified that this was a gas station under one of your controlled entities from 2007 to roughly 2019 or 20, depending on when the bank required you to shut down the station?
Correct.
In that period of time, at this location, was there any kind of vehicle accident on the premises, meaning within the four corners of the property boundaries?
Not during my time of owning the property, no.
All right. And during that time, 2007 to 2019/2020, from your own personal knowledge and firsthand experience, was there any harm caused to the neighborhood by the gas station use while it was a gas station?
Not at all.
Were the other adjacent and across the street properties developed for uses within that time?
Not that I'm aware of. It's been basically...
Were they pre-existing the church, the Cat's Pharmacy?
Yes, they were all there prior.
And I think Mr. Citrullo had testified that he wasn't entirely sure about the prior attempts to develop the property. Can you, as a current trustee for the current Blackwater Fall Trust owner and the prior owner, including your individual capacity, talk about the prior uses that have been attempted to been developed in the at this location within the last 10 years?
Yeah, it's been a long 10 years. 10 years ago, I proposed a Walgreens there. I'm sure everybody still remembers that. And it did pass the zoning board unanimously. And
did Walgreens ever develop it?
No. As far as I know, and the board could clarify this if I'm wrong. The commissioners of Haverford Township appealed the unanimous decision of the zoning board. And so it went to media, and it sat there over a year. And
when you say it went to media, do you mean the Court of Common Pleas?
It was appealed to the county court. And it sat there for over a year. At the first time I owned it, I had a substantial mortgage on it. And so I released Walgreens after a year, just because I felt it was like red tape. So I was back to the drawing board again. And then First Republic Bank came up to me and asked if I'd be willing to sell it. The economics.
Did they ever develop the bank there?
No, it's my understanding.
And Bob, let me ask the questions in sequence and one at a time. You attached, or you had me attach to your zoning, to the zoning application filed on Blackwater, on behalf of Blackwater Falls Trust, a copy of that prior zoning decision for Republic Bank. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that this property could be feasibly developed as a bank again now in 2024?
No. I'm not quite sure exactly why they didn't. I understand that they were approved by the zoning board to put in a bank with, I think, 2 drive-throughs. I'm not quite sure exactly what happened after that. But in today's world, everything's going digital. There's not the need to have the banks. The banks have really stopped developing new sites and are actually closing sites.
In terms of what's shown on Exhibit E, the 2,200 square foot convenience store and the 4-pump fueling station, did you consult with Bowler Engineer regarding the design and location of these features?
Yes.
Did you instruct Bowler Engineering to reduce any sizes in order to minimize impact upon the property, avoid overcrowding, avoid dimensional variance needs?
Yes, I asked them to make it the convenience store, 2,200 square feet. That's the smallest amount that a typical convenience store could be. If you're looking at these Wawas getting built, I know for a fact that they're between 4,000 and 5,000 square feet, double the size of what I'm asking for here.
How many gas pumps would a new current prototype Wawa have?
I believe they said that the minimum would be 8 to 10, which would
From
mean,
your,
which
from
would,
that, is that from your personal observation of going to any Wawas in Delaware County that are new?
well, all of them have at least 8 to 10 pumps or much more.
Members of the board, I want to give my colleague here the opportunity to cross Mr. Brotzman. I'll conclude with him at this point, but I would like to reserve the right to call him back.
Okay, thank you, Robert. How long do you think it'll take? Well, we still have other parties that have an opportunity to ask questions.
Honestly, I don't think
So-
we're getting through tonight, and if you were recalled, I would recall.
All right, well, let's see how far we get.
Okay, thank you.
But we're not rushing.
Thank you. At a gas station, you testified that you have experience with fueling stations, correct?
Yes.
And at a gas station, are there fuel spills that occur?
Fuel spills? No.
None, ever?
Well, of course, the rare occasion, has, in my entire lifetime, have I ever had a fuel spill? No, I have not.
And people are going to be operating these pumps themselves, correct?
Yes, most gas stations are
So
self-service.
it's foreseeable that someone pumping gas could overfill their tank and have fuel spill on the ground.
Well, there's systems in place that if a gas pump was to, drop out, that it will fall off. It will stop pumping gas. Just like if somebody drove off, which does happen, with the nozzle still in their car, right? It's called a breakaway, and the nozzle goes down the street with the car. So to avoid that stuff, there's a lot of stuff in place to prevent all that stuff from happening.
You indicated that this property has been subject to remediation in the past, right?
Yes,
So there was environmental contamination.
before my time.
And what was the contaminant?
I'm not quite sure. I'm not an environmentalist.
You said you were familiar with the entire process.
Yes,
So you didn't look at the report?
I've seen the report, and with Cumberland Farms, they're the liable party. There is a, how do I put it? They're responsible. It's a legal document. They're responsible for the cleanup of that property, and they're still monitoring it right now. I'm sorry. I wouldn't have been able to sell it to the bank if the bank felt uncomfortable. I'm the one that did the cleanup when the place was torn down, and I wouldn't purchase it back if I didn't think that it was.
Well, you said you did the cleanup. What did you clean up?
Well, my cleanup was negligible. All this happened prior to 2007. When I tore up everything out of the ground, there was nothing to clean up.
Was dirt removed from the site?
Very little.
So that's a yes.
That's a yes.
And where did that dirt go?
It was taken away by a company called Ferguson and McCann, a professional company to take that, is qualified to take that away.
So they dumped it somewhere else.
It went somewhere else.
So somebody else's problem.
Objection, he's already testified. He's hired Ferguson and McCann. He's hired other consultants. Mr. Grossman's not the one
All right.
actually with a shovel.
Cumberland Farms, did they operate this property as a gas station?
Yes, they did.
And you operated this property as a gas
Yes,
station?
I have.
Are you aware of any other uses of this property prior to Cumberland Farms operating it as a gas station?
Well, it opened up as a Chevron in 1965. I've seen that. It's been a gas station since 1965. And, it's prior to that, that's the year I was born. So I don't know what was there before.
So fair to say it's likely the environmental contamination was from the use as a gas station?
Yes,
Okay? And that's now been remediated,
yes,
and then you're proposing another gas station.
yes.
So there's a potential for additional environmental contamination.
Slim to none. All right, back in 1965, back in when it was built, all gasoline tanks in the ground leaked. All right, the systems that are in place right now make it almost impossible, all right, for any kind of ground to get contaminated. Absolutely impossible. There's so much stuff involved technically, and it's all computerized and all that. There's no way.
Someone could fill a gas can and spill it over. You're telling me that couldn't possibly contaminate the ground?
A gas can, a gallon of gas? No, it's not going to contaminate. It's not going to penetrate the asphalt. And when you fill them up, if you notice, you always fill it up on concrete, and there's a reason for that.
Okay. How is fuel delivered to service gas station?
By a fuel truck.
And what type of vehicle is that?
It's an 18-wheel vehicle. Carries anywhere between 8,500 gallons to 9,000 gallons.
And how much gas is going to be in the tanks on this property at any one time?
Now or before?
Under your proposal, with the four fueling stations.
Correct. All right. So there would be two 10,000-gallon tanks, so up to 20,000 gallons.
How frequently would that gas be delivered?
With my plan, I want to be aggressive with the price, so I would say, maybe 3 or 4 times per week.
And you mentioned you buy fuels from numerous suppliers.
Yes.
So you're basically calling, putting in an order, and it's up to the company that's delivering it to pick up the order and deliver it when they have time.
No, it comes within a window of time that I order it for.
What ultimately happened with Walgreens, the Walgreens application at the Court of Common Pleas? Do you know?
It never got to, it sat there for over a year. Nothing happened.
Did the Court of Common Pleas ever make a finding whether they overruled the zoning board or not?
No. After, like I said, I had a large mortgage at the time. Things are different now. And I just couldn't sit on it any longer while it was just sitting in the county courthouse.
And you indicated that banks have stopped developing sites, correct?
That banks?
Yes.
In general?
There are no banks that are building in the area?
No, because I do have a broker. There is a sign at the corner, right? And, of course, the first thing I wanted when I repurchased it was to try to get a bank in there because I think that would satisfy this board, and it'd satisfy everybody in this township. And I have not been able to find a single bank that is expanding right now. Nobody wants to be at that corner. A bank does not want to be at that corner right now.
Are you familiar with Drexel Brook and the development that's going on there?
I'm familiar with Drexel Brook, but I'm not too familiar with the development.
Are you
aware? I do know.
Object to this line of questioning because this board specifically directed that Mr. Brosnan could only testify to his experience at a gas station at this site.
Okay, that's fine. I think we're about out of time, so off there.
Very briefly, to redirect Mr. Brotsman, can you explain in greater detail what types of safety systems are in effect now for a gas station in 2024 relating to the tank walls, attachment systems, and any other safety systems?
Well, in the past, all the tanks that went in the ground in the 60s, 70s, even in the 80s were steel tanks. They all leaked. And since then, you got double wall steel. I have them at my current stations now with a fiberglass coating over it. They're guaranteed for 30 years. And it had a 30-year warranty on them for not leaking. Again, as I mentioned, if a car drove away, the gas automatically stops. You have it's required by the state, maybe the Fed, a push button right where the cashier sits that shuts off all the pumps. You have leak detectors inside the tanks. So an alarm goes off, a very loud alarm, if there's a leak detected by the, inside one of the tanks, and it shuts down all pumping at all. So there's just a whole bunch of different things. It makes things a lot safer. It costs a lot more, but it does the job. You don't hear of gas stations, built in the last 10 or 20 years. You don't hear of any kind of spill.
Any additional? Okay.
Well, we have to stop, and I have to ask the other parties if they want to ask questions, but if they say yes, we're not going to ask them tonight, so.
Well, problem is, he might not be here.
Well,
I don't mind staying.
no, he doesn't mind, but,
They might not be able to ask him questions.
Michael, do you have questions that you want to ask of this witness? And Julia, do you have questions that you would want to ask? Yes.
The
No.
problem is, this witness lives in Florida, and he flew up for this. He might not be available at the next hearing. So the issue is, if he's here now, questions need to be asked. They should be asked.
We are supposed to end the hearing at 11. So, how many questions do you have, Julia?
He's up there for 40 minutes talking about an expertise. I'm a police officer. That doesn't make me an expertise police officer.
He wasn't admitted as an expert. So move on from that, okay? We need to stay focused.
Closed, he has to come back.
Question, would 8 pumps relate to 16 cars filling up at once?
They're good questions that you're entitled to ask. I mean,
Well,
I would let the gentleman come up to the mic and ask a question.
Are you all right with it, trying to get additional?
wait, Robert, are you planning to be back up here in October?
I wasn't planning to be up here in October, no.
Do you have other reasons to come up? Family, whatever. I know you do.
No, I do not plan on being up here in October. I'm up here right now for 2 weeks until September 20th to get a lot of work done with my companies that I do have up here. And I also do have a business. A lot of people don't realize I do have a business in Florida that takes up the majority of my time. I'm up here mainly for this.
Yeah, that's fine.
Jonathan,
Jonathan.
I hate to ask this, but in order to accommodate the situation, I mean, do you think you could just keep an eye on the front door so that if anyone did want to come in, we would still be considered an open hearing because you could let them in?
One possible suggestion, I believe the witness will be here through the 20th. The next meeting is the 19th. Perhaps you could limit that testimony,
Good idea.
Yeah, we could do that.
just to be.
Just,
fair
it would
to
just
all
be
parties.
limited to cross-examination
Right,
and then
the
any
rest of the
redirect.
case would proceed on the 17th,
Yeah.
or whenever the continued date would be.
Good idea.
Yeah,
That's
I'm fine with that.
Check your flight schedule.
Well, you just said it, the 20th, and that's a good idea. That's
I
a good idea.
leave the 20th at 11 o'clock.
So you'd be available for.
Yes,
on
yeah,
the-
I would be fine coming back in
So
2
what we
weeks.
would do is we would put this one first.
Yep.
And get through the balance of the testimony, and then conclude it, and then reconvene on the 17th of October. And I appreciate council's suggestion.
So on the 19th, for the sole purpose of Robert asking any remaining questions, because I get the sense he was rushed, or Michael, if he's got any questions, right?
September 19th?
Yes. Or Julia, if you have.
But that's for his testimony only?
His testimony only.
Continue till October 17th?
That is
Correct.
correct.
I don't want anybody to feel rushed.
Yeah.
So,
He's got to work at 11 o'clock, he's already.
We're gonna conclude. So, at this
so,
point.
so that's it. You got it, Louis?
Our traffic engineer is also available.
Only
We're gonna-
Robert.
Yeah. Though it'll be quick, limited to his testimony, any final cross-examination and any redirect will conclude with this witness's testimony on the 19th. We'll do it first, and then the matter will be reconvened again for October 17th. Before we conclude this matter, and everybody can leave at this point, is council okay with waiving the applicable time periods under the MPC in order to be able to effectuate what we're trying to do here?
My client is.
Okay.
So thank you.
Mr. Caldwell, would you be also willing to waive the MPC time constraints for the 45 days to continue this hearing?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, so we're waiving that. I think we already have a waiver. on
You
file.
do. I just wanted to make sure it was on the record anyway, because we have other counsel here.
And the traffic engineer is available October
17th.
17th.
Great, okay. So,
All right.
yes. Well, since we've already put it on the record for the continuance, we don't need any additional public advertisement, so. Okay, this matter is currently concluded. We'll reconvene on,
No.
no, not
Continue.
concluded, continue, I'm
Continue.
sorry. Concluded for this evening, continued until September 19th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Yes.
everybody, for your time.
You ready to vote on that one case?
Same time, 7:30.
Are you?
Well, it's 7:30, but they usually get 7:45 start time.
Okay. That small case, so speaking. Are you okay with it? I'm just gonna have it.
Okay, you want to,
What? Would you like to? That's what we're doing. I just had to ask Jessica, Jess, Ed, if they were okay.
Thanks, guys. It's very interesting,
Good night.
actually.
Good night.
Maybe I'll clean up.
All right, you guys ready?
See you.
With respect to case Z 24-27, Matthew and Melissa Shaw. Excuse me,
you guys,
can you take it outside? I won't read the rest of the description into the record unless somebody specifically requests that I do so. I would ask if you're prepared to vote. Jessica?
I am.
Ed?
Yes.
Bill?
I am.
Jesse? Yes. And so am I. Bill, would you please take that decision?
Sure, with respect to case Z 24-27, I would vote to approve the requested relief subject to the following conditions. Number one, there shall be no enclosures or walls under the roof. Two, the utilities under the roof shall be limited to electricity only. Three, all gutters and downspouts should be tied into the existing stormwater drains of the house. Four, the roof shall not extend beyond either 8 feet from the front of the house or the outer edge of the existing concrete pad to be covered. Number five, the project will be completed within 1 year of this approval in accordance with the notes of testimony.
Jessica?
I agree.
Ed?
I concur.
Jesse?
I agree.
And so do I. That application's approved 5-0 with those conditions. Do we have minutes or anything to move?
We don't.
Okay. Any other administrative matters? All right, we're adjourned.